Good evening. My name is Jeff Goldberg, and this is my video podcast blog for my TAB proposal. For my assignment, I will be focusing on Compstat and whether it has been an effective policing tool implemented by NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton back in 1994. Compstat is still used within the NYPD and is currently used widely across the country in many police agencies. Within a few minutes, I will briefly discuss what Compstat is, how it's being used, and just introduce you to two criticisms I've come across so far in my paper research. But before I begin, it's important to introduce to you, the viewer, the broken windows theory. Now, for those of you watching who are unfamiliar with this theory, it was introduced by sociologists James Wilson and George Kelly. Now, the theory is that the idea that people, specifically criminals, base their behaviors on their surroundings. Now, if a criminal sees a broken window in an area that's been unattended to for quite some time, it signifies to them that no one cares, no one's going to care, and it justifies breaking more windows. They're not going to be held accountable for their actions. Now, you may be asking yourself, how does this relate to crime and policing crime? Well, Commissioner Bratton saw the broken window as a metaphor and adapted it to crime and disorder. He saw high crime areas a result of unaccountability. He believed that the lack of a police presence for even the most petty crimes gave reason for criminals to continue to break the law. By enforcing even the smallest of laws, it will prevent the largest of crimes from occurring. When Bratton was the transit commissioner, he was cracking down on graffiti artists and turnstile jumpers. Now, you and I view this as very, very petty crimes being committed, but Bratton saw it differently. He saw them as easy crimes to be policed. He believed that aggressively policing low-level offenses would help deter major crimes from happening. And according to Compstat data in the 1990s, violent crimes dropped 51% and homicides dropped 71% citywide. So what is Compstat then? Well, Compstat was an idea that Bratton introduced in 1994. It's a policing tool and a methodology that uses statistical analysis of crime data. Essentially, this is called a crime mapping. It addresses criminal activity in police precinct jurisdictions. It's a management tool for police personnel to see if they're addressing the needs of the communities that they serve. So how does CrimeStat work? Well, each week, the top executives within the agency meet with commanders of operational units across the city, and they discuss the data that's been collected. By tracking the types of crime being committed and where they're occurring, it allows for the discussion of how they're going to solve reducing crime and how they're going to improve the quality of life for people living in these neighborhoods. It's also an accountability tool. The commanders report to the top level executives and they review police performance, they evaluate the skills of the officers, and it helps executives monitor precincts, and it helps them allocate resources where necessary. Now that you know what Compstat is and how Compstat's currently being used, there's a few criticisms that I've come across so far that are very important to discuss. The first one has to do with Compstat and stop and frisk. Compstat has come under much criticism recently with the outbreak of stop and frisk complaints citywide. Actually, Professor Emeritus Eli Silverman from our own John Jay College said that Compstat pressures cops to underreport serious crimes and to conduct unjustified stop and frisk searches. Now, I'll go back to that in a second, but I just want to touch upon the second problem that I've come across with the Compstat system, is that it's a top-down management style. It's a very hierarchical process, where it starts up top with the commissioner, and it goes all the way down to just the police officer, who has to report kind of like a ladder. It's a management style that reinforces internal bureaucratic processes, a lot of red tape. There's a lot of reporting that needs to be done, and there's a lot of processes that a police officer needs to go through. It's leadership by fear. Now, going back to the unjustified stop and frisk searches, it's a leadership by fear because these officers have to report data, and if it doesn't show that they're reducing crime, then they're not doing their job. It's a failure to motivate officers, the Compstat system. It doesn't give them motivation to say, you're doing your job correctly. Because the data being collected is being collected in high crime areas that are known for these criminals to be living in. And that's where the racial situation comes into play with the unjustified stop and frisk searches. Going back to Eli Silverman, he believes that the stop and frisk searches are a result of the Compstat theory, is that by aggressively policing low-level offenses would help deter major crimes from happening. So yes, statistically we may see a drop in crime, but is it at the cost of one's own personal privacy? And just to summarize, Compstat, again, is a policing tool, and it's a methodology. It's a combination of using management skill and also computer skills to track crime, to see where the crimes are being committed. It's important for me to do this research because as an individual looking to get into public administration, court administration is one area that I'm very interested in. And it's very interesting for me to see that there are criticisms that Compstat might have to do with racial undertones, and it might have to do with bad management style. And I'm very curious to see if Compstat really has effectively impacted the decrease in crime. Again, my name is Jeff Goldberg, and I'm excited to see everyone else's videos and to hear your responses. Thank you.